Apple didn't disappoint in one of the biggest product launches in years. The world watched as Apple unveiled a whole suite of new products and technology. But with the stock up almost 50% this year and having already hit over 30 record highs, is it realistic to think that the shares could move even higher? Here to explain why he thinks Apple stock could move up is Vitali from TD Asset Management. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
So going into the announcement, there were a number of things leaked, which was a bit unusual. We knew a new Apple Watch was coming. We knew about 4K TV. We even knew about the Apple 10 being a possibility. As you were watching, what was surprising, or what do you think was important?
Well, there's definitely no shortage of leaks or speculation ahead of this event. But look, at the end of the day, Apple is still very much all about the iPhone. So what we were looking for yesterday is what new phone devices were they going to announce? And they announced two. The first one is a direct replacement for the iPhone 7, and logically that's now called the iPhone 8. And that remains really very similar to what we had before with the 7. So you're going to have the two form factors, a standard 4.7-inch display, and then a larger 5.5-inch display with the Plus device. And you're going to see a couple of things that are different, like a new glass back that allows for wireless charging, and the new A11 Bionic microprocessor from Apple in that device. But at the end of the day, that represents more of a step function from the 7. The big news yesterday was the number 10, the iPhone 10 device, and it was called that to commemorate the 10-year anniversary of the original iPhone in 2007. And this is where really Apple is using its status as a flagship device to show the technological leaps that it's made over the last couple of years. So what you're going to get is very different things from Apple, like edge-to-edge LED display that's just going to look crisper and better and really change the form factor of the phone. So people, when they look at it, they won't really mistake it for any other iPhone that's come before it. And as well, you're going to get things like the absence of the home button that all the Apple device users are so used to. And instead, it'll be facial recognition that now authenticates users. So you'll pick up your phone, you'll look into it, and through a combination of sensors, cameras, and facial recognition technology, Apple will let you into your device if you are the owner of that phone. So overall, we're thinking of the iPhone 8 as an incremental leap, and then the iPhone 10 as that sort of big leap that Apple has made with its technology.
But it wasn't just the iPhone, right? Something else that got a lot of attention was the Apple Watch. And we actually learned yesterday it's the #1 selling watch in the world. It now beat out Rolex for that position. So, thinking about things that we learned about, it is now waterproof, it has health functions. As you look at the watch and you think about how that could impact Apple's sales picture, does it matter? What portion of their total sales does that represent?
Yeah, the watch is definitely a very interesting and innovative product. There's no question about it. And what got a lot of people talking yesterday about the watch was a new version of it, and that's called the cellular version. And now what that means really is now, if you're an iPhone user and a watch user, you won't have to have your iPhone with you for the watch to have all those connectivity features, like making phone calls or, for example, just getting online and doing whatever. So people are talking about that and some of the other features that you mentioned as well. But look, as investors, at the end of the day, we just have to be cautious and temper expectations. Like we said, the watch is very innovative, but with sales of about $4.5 billion last year, it's just 2% of Apple's overall revenue line. So, it's a great device, very cool, but it's not going to be the driver of the stock, at least for the next couple of years.
One of the things I noticed as we pulled up your chart is that iPhones represent nearly 2/3 of total sales for Apple. But what I didn't realize was that as you look at the chart, service revenue, so things like iCloud, represent a pretty big portion. My question being, if we think about Apple's opportunity in the future, is it their ability to grow hardware sales, or do you think it's service revenue, things like iCloud?
It's an astute observation because services has really come from being an insignificant part of Apple to being the second biggest revenue line after the iPhones, albeit quite a bit smaller. And when we think of services, it's really not just any one thing. It's a multitude of different services like the App Store, iCloud, iTunes, and etc. So, it's a business that's growing quite fast, 20% last year and probably 20% the year before. And we think it is the next big growth driver for the stock outside of the phones. And it makes sense when you think about it. It's a very compelling model. Just think about the iPhone install base, the user base, the 600 million plus people around the world that are using their phones and spending hours every single day interacting with that device. And Apple looks at them and says, well, I've got this big opportunity to upsell you on all of these different services that we just mentioned. And that's a very compelling proposition to us. And Tim Cook and management tend to agree, I think, and they've actually said that, look, we're going to look to double the size of that business by 2020.
One of the things analysts were talking about is in terms of the upsell, would these new devices or new products lead to a super cycle of upgrades? So meaning you and I, we trade in our iPhone 6 or our 7, we buy the new Apple Watch. Do you think they came in with enough improvements? Have they hit the mark really when it comes to innovation with this event?
Well, viewers will remember that the iPhone 6 was really that last big super cycle of upgrades. And that began in late 2014 when Apple delivered a phone with a bigger display area. And that was something that was very much in vogue and in demand by the market. Now the 6S and the 7, neither of those devices really delivered anything all that incrementally large to stimulate an upgrade cycle. And now what we think is that yes, with the 8 and particularly the 10, Apple has done something that's going to get users to step in and say, hey, I have to go and get that new device. Now, there's also data that suggests that this is indeed the case. So for example, if you look at the Apple install base of iPhones, you'll see that the number of iPhones that are at least 2 years old, as a percentage of the overall base, that's as high as it's ever been, meaning people need to update their devices.
So they're waiting on the sidelines and they want to go in to get the newest, latest device.
Exactly. And actually, Tim Cook, the CEO himself, pointed out that, look, in June, July, August, they were seeing iPhone users pause and say, you know what, I'm not going to go get the 7 in the store. I think I'll wait for that next big thing that's coming in the fall. And a lot of that probably has to do with just the, sort of the media hype cycle around this new device. And so that's another reason we think there's really going to be a bigger upgrade cycle than we've seen the last couple of years this time around.
Some investment analysts are now thinking Apple, which is already the biggest company in the world, could become a $1 trillion firm. Is that number realistic? And what's your outlook for the stock going forward?
Well, we always have to be cautious about throwing numbers out there like $1 trillion. I mean, what do those really mean? And fundamentally, what we do want to communicate is that, yes, we're constructive on Apple shares. At the end of the day, they've done very well over the last 12 months, but we expect that these new devices, the 8 and the 10, do have enough in them to stimulate a big upgrade cycle that will be a share price catalyst. And the other point to all this is that we also need to focus on total return as opposed to just the share price. And Apple's a unique case because they have a massive return of capital program. They're looking to give back $70 billion to shareholders in terms of buybacks and dividends over the course of the next year. So rather again than look at numbers that are 1 trillion or whatever may be the next cool thing to focus on, we should really focus on that total return number and the actual upgrade cycle coming up with the iPhone 8 and 10.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.